what does embryology actually mean?
So the study of the development of this embryo right from, a single cell to the stage of blastocyst comes under embryology.
Let's talk about the fertility treatments and the skill set required for these treatments.
So typically an embryologist will start by doing IUI samples, then they will move on to IVF, then they will move on to advanced techniques like ICSI.
How has the training in embryology evolved over the years?
Earlier, it used to be in countries like UK, Australia, where they used to have MSc in clinical embryology. But since 10 to 12 years, even in India, this clinical embryology courses have come up. They are, I would say, as good as the courses which are offered in other countries.
Hello and welcome to Fertility Tales powered by Nova IVF. I'm your host Simrat, and today we are diving into the fascinating world of embryology with a very special guest, Anuja Kamath, head of Nova Academy of Clinical Embryology Training, also known as NACET. With over 2 decades of experience in assisted reproductive technology and a rich background in physiology and biotech, Anuja is a true pioneer in her field. So let's embark on this enlightening journey together, especially for those of you stepping into your fertility journey. Anuja, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
First thing first, what does embryology actually mean? I believe it's a term which is widely used but not understood. Can you tell us a little bit about what embryology really is?
So if I have to tell you in layman's term, embryology is the science of embryos, study of development of embryo. Now, what is an embryo? Embryo is a one-cell structure which is formed when an egg from the wife is fertilized with a sperm from the man. So this is the beginning of the formation of the baby. So this develops further. So the embryo gradually develops further and forms a stage which is called as blastocyst, which then implants into the womb of the woman. So the study of the development of this embryo right from, a single cell to the stage of blastocyst comes under embryology.
Oh,
so you can say it's a part of medical sciences or reproductive science.
All right. And what is the role of a clinical embryologist?
Okay. Now, embryology is not specific to only humans. Okay, any animal who reproduces will form an embryo. So, study of an embryo is embryology. But what is clinical embryology? So, the study of development of human embryo is called as clinical embryology. So, a clinical embryologist is a equivalent part of any fertility clinic.
All right.
So a fertility clinic will usually have 2 components. One will be the doctor, clinical doctor, and the second will be a clinical embryologist who will work in the embryology laboratory.
That leads me to another question. Why is clinical embryology such a niche subject? I'm sure our listeners who are exploring their fertility options would like to know, why is it so specialized?
So let me tell you, clinical embryology is similar to any doctor doing a super specialty. Okay. So this is a super specialized course. Even if you have done postgraduate in any kind of life sciences, you have to do a post-graduation in clinical embryology. Now, why that is so? Because an embryologist, a clinical embryologist, will be dealing with precious material of the patients.
Right.
So it will be the eggs from the woman and sperms from the husband.
Right.
And there is some problem with the fertilization which is causing infertility to the couple. So we know that there is some problem which is not allowing fertilization to occur, and an embryologist has to overcome this using his or her technique.
And handle it with care.
Yes.
Yeah.
So apart from the theory knowledge, so definitely an embryologist should know what happens during each stage of the development of the embryo.
Right.
Why the embryo is behaving in this particular way, why it is not behaving in, a defined way. Apart from that, technical skill set is very important. An embryologist has to be sound very technically so that he can do justice to the precious material which has been handed over to him or her. And that's why it is a niche subject.
Sounds like a very fascinating field.
Yes, it is.
Anuja, I've always been very curious. What does an embryologist actually do in an IVF lab? I've heard them being affectionately called as babysitters, but could you shed some light on what happens in a IVF lab?
So just like a nanny takes care of the baby, an embryologist takes care of the embryo. So when the embryologist is handed over the eggs and the sperms of the couple, the embryologist will, fertilize the egg with the sperm. Now this usually happens in the body of the female.
Right.
But due to reasons which make them infertile, this fertilization cannot happen in the body of the woman, and that's why an embryologist does it outside the body in the embryology laboratory.
Okay.
So after this fertilization, see, in the body of the female, the womb takes care of the embryo.
Correct.
But now in the laboratory, there is no womb. So the embryologist or the fertility clinic tries to mimic the environment which is present in the womb of the mother. Okay. So how do we mimic this environment? Yeah. So we have equipments, like incubators, which hold this embryo and nurture these embryos during the whole time that it is in the laboratory.
Okay.
Apart from this, the environment in the laboratory also plays a major role.
Of course.
Yes. So what an embryologist does is, right after the fertilization, till the embryo grows to day 5. Okay, a human can only grow an embryo outside the body till day 5 or day 6. Okay. So during this period of 5 to 6 days, the embryo is outside the body, and the embryologist will take care of all the conditions around the embryo. It can be the air in which the incubator is. It can be the culture media which provides, nourishment to this embryo. Okay. So he or she will be monitoring the growth of the embryo on day-to-day basis. So basically he or she is taking care of the embryo just like a nanny takes care of the baby, and that's why an embryologist is called as a babysitter.
Sounds like a very tough day-to-day daily activity.
Yes.
So what do you do in an IVF lab?
So a typical day in a laboratory for an embryologist, it starts early in the morning, even before any procedure starts.
Okay.
So we usually start the day with quality checks. Now, QC plays a very important role in the maintenance of the laboratory.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of equipments like incubator, like the micromanipulator, the ICSI machine. And we have to ensure that all the equipments are functioning properly. Okay. We cannot afford not to check the equipments on daily basis.
You're handling such precious.
Yeah.
Right.
Only if the equipments are functioning properly, the embryo can grow.
Okay.
So a typical day begins with doing quality checks. So an embryologist will check the temperature of the incubator, the temperature of all the other surfaces which are, warmed to 37 degrees. Now, why the surfaces are warmed to 37 degrees? Because a human body temperature, the resting temperature of human body is 37. So the eggs and the sperms are also at 37.
Yeah, this comes back to mimicking the womb.
Yes, that's why when it comes outside the body, we have to provide the temperature which is required for the growth of the embryo. So all our surfaces where we handle the eggs and the sperms, they are usually maintained at 37 degrees. So an embryologist first will check all the surfaces, whether they are, showing the right temperature, whether they are maintained at proper temperature. Then they will check the air quality of the laboratory.
Okay.
Now, air quality, you will ask me why it is so important. For us, for human beings, this dust particles or, something which is called as VOC. organic volatile compounds. They don't affect us. We are not aware of that. But what we are dealing in the embryology laboratory is at cellular level. Okay, it is a single cell, the egg, and a single cell sperm. So this, disturbances in the air, high dust particles or high organic compounds, they have deteriorating effect on the oocytes, the eggs and the sperms. And that's why the embryologist make sure that the atmosphere inside the laboratory is also, free from pollutants.
Okay.
Now, organic compounds, you will be surprised to know what are the sources of organic compounds. Okay, it is as simple as, a perfume or a body lotion.
Okay, so none of the embryologists couldn't.
So, embryologists should not, or they are prohibited from wearing simple things like, your cold cream or body lotion. So, this might not affect us, but this gives this organic compounds and this will have an effect on the embryo. So, an embryologist will never wear, any kind of cosmetics inside the laboratory. So, after that, after the QC check, so usually there will be a procedure where the eggs will be taken out from the wife. Okay, this is done by the doctor. So, the doctor will take out the eggs, it is called as an ovum pickup, and the eggs will be handed over to the embryologist. Simultaneously, the sperm from the husband is also, processed. By processing, I mean we select good quality sperms from the sample.
Only the best.
Yes. And then later in the day, this egg is fertilized with the sperm.
Okay.
And then it is put in the incubator. From that point onwards, every 18 to 24 hours, the embryologist will check upon the embryo, how it is growing or whether any, abnormal fertilization or whether it is not growing. So, the embryologist will keep a check on this embryo through 5 days. So, in between, the embryologist, on day 2 or day 3, the embryo would be growing in culture media and they would be using up all the, nourishment which is there in the culture media.
Right.
So, you have to replenish it. Right? So, on second day or third day of the cycle, the embryologist will give a fresh environment. What I mean by this is, they will change the embryo from one dish to a fresh dish containing fresh culture media. So, you are giving fresh nourishment to the embryo so that they can grow ahead.
And thrive.
Yes.
Sounds like you're playing God in the lab.
No, it's like, God guides, we only do what He guides us to do.
But it sounds like so much of skill, precision, and a bit of magic of what you actually do in an embryology lab. Handling the embryos with such utmost care. I'm sure handling all those, doing all those QCs and keeping all those medias in check must be very tough also.
Yes, it is. And that's why I said skill is, very important. And the embryologist, he should be dedicated to work, he or she, okay? Because the whole thing, the fertility cycle, it all depends on the menstrual cycle of the wife. You cannot, time it.
Yeah, of course.
Correct? So, you have, the embryologist should be dedicated enough to come when he or she is required to do the work in the embryology laboratory.
Skill, precision, and magic.
Yes.
Anuja, there are so many fertility treatments out there. Let's talk about the fertility treatments and the skill set required for these treatments. Will an embryologist have the same skill set to perform an IUI or IVF or an ICSI? I believe it's a blend of scientific knowledge and some other things. Could you shed some light on the skill set required?
So basically, IUI is the most basic fertility treatment that can be offered to a couple. The skill that is required from an embryologist to do an IUI is to process a sample. So this is a technical skill.
Okay.
So there is a set technique which is required to separate out the best sperms from the sample, and then these sperms are then used for IUI.
Intrauterine.
Yes.
Insemination. Okay.
Yes. So the next treatment higher up from IUI is an IVF. So IVF requires a little more of precision,
Of course.
and a little more technical skill set, because you will be handling the eggs. The embryologist handles the eggs which are out of the body of the woman.
Okay.
So when handling of egg comes, it is, you have to be very precise, because it is a very sensitive cell. Compared to the sperm, the egg is very sensitive, and to do an IVF procedure, there are certain skill sets required, which can, which an embryologist can only gather after, some experience.
Okay.
So an embryologist usually starts by doing, semen processing for IUI, then they move on to do IVF. Okay. So in IVF, what they do is they will co-culture. Co-culture in the sense they will put the egg and the sperm together in a culture dish and allow fertilization to occur naturally. Okay. So the skill set here required here is, putting the two cells together by taking utmost sterile care. Okay, right. So that is the skill set required. Moving on to ICSI, which is the next technique higher up. This requires a lot of precision. Now, why I am saying this? Because here we have to, as an embryologist, we have to put one sperm inside one egg. So fertilization is not happening naturally. An embryologist has to introduce one sperm into one oocyte. So the skill required here is to be able to select the best possible single sperm from the semen sample, and injecting it into the oocyte is again, a highly demanding skill, because if the injection is not done in a correct way, you are at a risk of degenerating the egg. That means the egg will not survive this injection. Okay. And you will be losing the precious material of the couple. Right. So a well-defined skill set is required, which can be acquired, through years of practice.
Experience and training.
Yes. Right. So typically an embryologist will start by doing IUI samples. Okay. Then they will move on to IVF. Then they will move on to advanced techniques like ICSI. So this can take anywhere from 8 months to probably 14-15 months also. Okay. It depends on how quickly the embryologist can acquire the skill.
So let's talk about NACET, Nova Academy of Clinical Embryology Training, where you are the head.
Yes.
How does the program work? I mean, do we give enough training to the people who can actually perform with all these skill sets?
Correct. So NACET, we started this a couple of years back with the intention of imparting much needed practical skills to the budding embryologist.
Of course. Okay.
So after finishing this clinical embryology course, in the colleges where they take up the course for a period of 2 years, they would be taught all kind of theory, and practicals also would be taught to them, but that is not enough to handle human eggs and sperms.
Okay.
So at NACET, the aim is to give them practical training, so that when they are ready to handle the human eggs and sperms, they are confident about themselves and they can do justice to the material that has been given to them.
Understandable, of course.
So we try to bridge the gap between the theory knowledge and the practical skill set at NACET.
Nova Academy of Clinical Embryology and Training sounds like a revolutionary step in this field. Could you tell me, for students who are interested in this, what does a trainee actually do in this course and how do they specialize in it?
So we at Nova Academy for Clinical Embryology Training, that is NACET, We offer two kind of trainings for people who aspire to become embryologist. The first part is for embryologists who have finished their post graduation in clinical embryology.
Okay.
So they would have finished their 2 years MSc in clinical embryology in a college or a university, and then they are ready for the field. Now, as I mentioned earlier, they would have a lot of exposure to theory knowledge, and practical exposure will be very limited. So for these trainees, what we do at NACET is we give them ample hands-on training. So we concentrate on hands-on training for all the students who have finished clinical embryology. So by hands-on training, I mean right from the basic, how to hold the pipettes, how to keep the dishes.
Handling.
Sterile environment or sterile handling, what we call as aseptic technique, is very important in embryology.
Taking them back to the basics, right? The fundamentals.
Yes. So they have learned all this, theoretically. But when they do it practically, subconsciously what happens is they tend, the pipette is in the hand and they do some procedure. So they tend to touch the pipette to surfaces. So what we guide there is, guide at NACET is how to handle the pipette. So that is very basic. But there is no one to tell them that. So what we do, we start from the basic. We'll tell them, to keep the pipettes in the pipette stand, how to hold them, when you are processing the semen sample, how to mix the semen sample. So there are a lot of, technical
practical knowledge.
So when you are mixing a semen sample, there should be no bubbles formed. Okay, so we tell them how to avoid formation of bubbles. Okay, so from this basic to handling the egg for advanced technique like ICSI. So right from the basic to the advanced technique, practical knowledge is given to this trainees.
And this is for people who've already done their basic course. Yes. And what about people who just want to start their career?
Correct. So people who have done graduation in any kind of life sciences, okay, not clinical embryology. Now, as per the ART law, after the law, only people who have done clinical embryology with 3 years on-site experience can become a clinical embryologist. For people who do any other post-graduation in any other life sciences, they are required to do on-the-job training for at least 4 years. Only after that, they can qualify as an embryologist. So for these set of people, we also, teach them theory about what embryology is. Okay, they have to understand what they are dealing with. They have to understand how important, all the things related to embryology is. Okay, how important maintaining the temperature, how important, checking the embryo at right time. All these things they have to understand what happens physiologically. Only if they understand what is happening physiologically can they apply their mind to the technical part. And that is what we do for these students. We teach them theory, which is involved in human clinical embryology. Along with that, we also train them practically. Okay, so that they can, so they have to work for 4 years in an embryology lab under a senior embryologist. Only after 4 years, working for 4 years, they can independently work as an embryologist.
Okay, and what is the duration like for both these batches?
Okay, so for clinical embryology students, this is 6 months, more of practical. Okay, theory, whatever they have learned, they have to apply that here in NACET to the practical things. For the other students, life sciences students, it is a 1-year course in which theory and practical both will be given importance.
So after they've completed their course, what is the scope for an embryologist? What all career paths can they expect?
So an embryologist, after they finish their 2 years of clinical embryology, they can join a clinic as a trainee embryologist. After a certain, now for Nova at NACET, okay, we give them a designation as trainee embryologist. So this is for 6 months. After that, they are placed in a laboratory where they work under supervision, and the designation will be same as trainee embryologist. Now at Nova, we have a validation process. Now what I mean by validation is, now embryology, the whole procedure, it has multiple steps. Okay, multiple steps like, ovum pickup, then you do denudation, you do ICSI. So for each of this step, the embryologist has to get validated, each and every step individually. Okay, so validation criteria is a certain number of procedures under the supervision satisfactorily.
And then only you can gradually.
Yes. So once this multiple steps are validated, the embryologist moves on to become an associate embryologist. Okay. Now, as per the ART guideline, till an embryologist has completed 3 years working, they cannot be given a designation of clinical embryologist. Okay. So from associate embryologist, they then become clinical embryologist after the time period, the defined time period. From clinical embryologist, then there is, you can become a lab manager depending on your experience. From lab manager, you can become a cluster head. So you will be looking after, overseeing, a few centers, some 4 or 5 centers in a region. From there, you can become a regional head taking care of a region. Okay. So like our Nova, the company like Nova, we have centers all across India. So a regional head will take care of a certain region, for example, a west region or east region, a south or north. Okay. After that, you can become the head of embryology. So there is a defined, career path. Apart from this, academically also an embryologist, while he or she is working, can extract data, research data, can publish papers, can pursue PhD. So it will be a academic growth also for an embryologist.
Very lucrative and
fulfilling. Yes, professional as well as academic.
How has the training in embryology evolved over the years? It's interesting to see how the advancements in technology and science shape our education. Could you shed some light?
So this has evolved by leaps and bounds. Okay. So as all of us know, the first test tube baby was born in 1978.
Yeah.
So now we are 4 decades into the field of IVF. And as all the other field grow, even the field of IVF has grown. Speaking about embryology, till 2 or 3 decades back, there was no structured course which imparted the training of clinical embryology. So people of my era, we all have learned from somebody else. So during our times, that was in early 2000s, embryologists used to come from abroad, like UK, Singapore, because of 2 facts. First was infertility issue was not openly discussed. Also, there were not many fertility clinics which offered treatment to infertile couples. So there was lack of manpower and lack of knowledge.
Okay.
So there were only a handful people who knew embryology, and these people always travel to all the centers, and junior embryologist would learn from them.
Okay.
But over the last decade, this has developed, this has evolved. So now we have structured courses which teach clinical embryology. Earlier, it used to be in countries like UK, Australia, where they used to have MSc in clinical embryology, and students from India would travel there and learn and come back to India and practice. But since 10 to 12 years, even in India, this clinical embryology courses have come up. They are, I would say, as good as the courses which are offered in other countries. They have a well-structured course material, so they teach theory, as well as practical. Now, practicals I have mentioned in my earlier, points also, that there is restriction to teaching practicals because of the lack of material. So in colleges, practicals is done on mammalian material. So this can be mouse, mouse egg, or sheep or goat egg. So not human material. So the practical skills that is taught in the colleges will be limited, and that's why like NACET, like Nova Academy, where we concentrate on imparting the practical skill set, I would say we have come a long way since 1978.
I'm sure. And for students who want to pursue embryology in the current date, could you suggest or shed some light on institutes that offer these courses in India or abroad?
Yes. There are, many institutes which offer clinical embryology. In Karnataka, we have, the Manipal group, which offers clinical embryology. Apart from that, we have a couple of institutes like JSS in Mysore. Going to north, there are few institutes which, impart embryology training. Pune, Nagpur, Chennai, all these places have a structured, MSc clinical embryology course.
So we do have a plethora of places
Yes.
to pursue embryology in India as well. In a field that is constantly evolving, that is embryology, how do you keep abreast with the latest developments in this field?
In India, over the past, few years, few decades, we have societies which are dedicated to ART. So we have a national level society which is known as Indian Society for Assisted Reproduction, ESAR. Apart from that, we have Indian Fertility Society. We have something called as ACE, which is Academy of Clinical Embryologists of India. With all this, societies, they conduct CMEs, that is continued medical education.
Okay.
They have workshops, they conduct conferences, and this is a way in which the clinical embryologist stay abreast of all the new developments which happen in the field of embryology.
All right.
So, apart from the Indian societies, the important, societies which are outside of India are ESHRE, which is the European Society, as well as the ASRM, that is the American Society for Reproductive Medicines.
And what does ASHRE stand for?
ESHRE stands for European Society of Human Reproduction and Embryology.
Okay. I think science, and with all its advancements, one can only learn and keep upskilling themselves. So I believe all these societies would definitely help with their certifications to keep one abreast in all the latest developments.
Yes. So ASRM, ESHRE, they do, certify embryologists. So an embryologist who stays outside of Europe or America can take up this exam online. If they clear this exam, they get certification from these societies. So this helps, for their career growth. Okay. Particularly, if they are looking at working outside of India, then this certification will help them in getting a, job in those countries.
All right. And my last question, Anuja, is for students who want to pursue embryology as a career. What advice would you impart as the head of Nova Academy of Clinical Embryology and Training? What would be that advice for anybody who is wanting to pursue their career in embryology?
So because it's such a niche field, I would like to compare it with, a super specialty medical field. So just like the way the surgeons are dedicated, the clinical embryologists should be dedicated to their work. Just like, the surgeons know that, there can be emergencies in their field. The embryologist should very well know that there can be, time, or there can be days which is out of their working hours, where they have to come and monitor the embryos, or they have to do a certain step in the procedure. Okay, it can, it can fall on a holiday, it can fall on your birthday, but you cannot shy away from it. So dedication, ethics, okay, you are dealing with human egg and human sperms, which is very precious to the couple. Empathy, okay, you have to feel what the couple is,
Going through.
going through.
Right.
Okay, you have to do justice to the material. Determination, okay, you should know that, only if you follow a certain technique, you will have the end result. So you should be determined enough to, hone your skills, and to, learn that skill which is required to give happiness to the couple.
And I'm sure that feeling is just out of this world, to be able to make a couple's dream come true.
Yes, yes.
Thank you,
So
Anuja.
who would not want to be a part of, happiness?
That's true. That's true. Thank you, Anuja, for sharing your wealth of information and experience with us. I'm sure everyone benefited from it.
Thank you.
To our listeners, whether you're just starting out your fertility journey or are curious about the science behind it, remember, knowledge is power, and understanding the role of embryology is a key part of this fascinating journey. Stay tuned for more enlightening conversations here on Fertility Tales powered by Nova IVF. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your host, Simrat, signing off.